Right now, you can turn a small handle in your kitchen and drinkable water just appears. You don't smell it first. You don't check the color. You don't even think about it. Your hand already knows the water is safe before your brain does, because you've never once been punished for trusting it. Strip that handle away, and you're standing at the edge of a river 60,000 years ago, and that same unthinking trust would have a decent chance of killing you. No chlorine, no filter, no little test strip. Just brown water moving past your feet, and somewhere upstream, you have no idea what died in it 3 days ago. Here's the part that should stop you. Humans have been drinking from rivers, ponds, and puddles for over 100,000 years, long before anyone understood what a microbe was, and yet entire bands of early humans survived generation after generation without wiping themselves out from their own water source. Not because they were lucky, because somewhere in that skull, a system was running that had nothing to do with knowledge and everything to do with instinct, and pieces of that exact system are still wired into you today, quietly steering you away from a carton of milk that smells slightly off, even when you can't say why. The question that should actually bother you isn't, did they get sick sometimes? Of course they did. The question is, how a species with zero germ theory, zero microscopes, zero understanding of what bacteria even were, built a reliable enough water safety system to expand across an entire planet. Somehow, that system worked well enough that your bloodline is sitting here right now, alive, reading this, which means every single ancestor between you and the first humans made the correct call at the water's edge, every single time it mattered. One bad guess, at the wrong moment, and that line ends. Yours didn't. There isn't one clever trick behind that. There are at least 5 overlapping defenses, stacked on top of each other, some built into the body, some built into behavior, some built into culture, and together they turned a lethal gamble into something survivable enough to build a species on. The first defense is the one you still carry around without noticing, and it's honestly a little embarrassing how effective it is: smell and taste aversion. Rotting organic matter, the kind that shows up when something has died or decayed in standing water, produces compounds like putrescine and cadaverine, and human smell receptors are tuned to flag those compounds as disgusting almost instantly, often at concentrations too low for you to consciously identify what's wrong. You just know something's off. That reaction isn't cultural. Babies show disgust responses to spoiled smells before they've been taught a single word for bacteria. Meanwhile, you, standing in your kitchen tonight, will smell milk that's turned 2 days early and physically recoil before your conscious mind finishes the sentence, "Is this bad?" That flinch is a 100,000-year-old alarm system, still fully operational, still running background checks on everything you put near your mouth. But smell only catches what's already decayed enough to announce itself. Plenty of dangerous water looks and smells completely normal, which means disgust alone would have left early humans with dangerous blind spots. And that gap forces the next layer of defense to exist. That second layer was location, and it's less about chemistry and more about geography, which sounds almost too simple until you see what it actually prevented. Moving, flowing water carries far fewer pathogens than still water, because bacteria and parasites concentrate in stagnant pools where nothing disturbs them and nothing dilutes them. Early humans consistently favored springs, headwaters, and running streams over ponds and puddles. And that single behavioral preference, repeated daily across thousands of years, functioned as a crude but effective filtration system, no boiling required. This is why so many ancient settlements from the Near East to East Africa cluster near spring sources rather than swampy lowlands. Even when swampy lowlands were closer, they weren't chasing convenience. They were, without any formal knowledge of microbiology, chasing lower microbial load. Here's where it gets uncomfortable though. Because moving water solves one danger and creates another. Rivers flood, springs dry up. Following clean water sources meant following unpredictable ones, and that unpredictability is exactly what forced the third defense into existence. Because early humans couldn't just find good water once. They had to find it constantly, in territory that changed with the seasons. That third defense was animal observation, and it's the one that should genuinely unsettle you a little, because it means human survival was partially outsourced to other species. Early humans learned to read the landscape the way you'd read a warning label, except the warning label was alive and grazing nearby. Areas where healthy grazing animals congregated to drink were treated as safer, because those animals were, in effect, running a live biological test on the water every single day, and a thriving herd was evidence the source wasn't immediately lethal. Conversely, water sources surrounded by animal carcasses, or avoided by animals altogether, were almost universally avoided by human groups too. This wasn't superstition dressed up as tradition. It was pattern recognition running on decades of accumulated group memory, passed down without ever being written anywhere, because writing didn't exist yet. Now, here's the twist most people get wrong when they imagine this. It's tempting to picture prehistoric humans nervously testing every new water source like scientists, but that's not quite what was happening. And the real mechanism is stranger than that. Individual humans weren't running trial and error alone. Groups were, across generations, and the individuals who got it wrong simply didn't get to pass on their guess. This means that testing was a conscious strategy at all. It was raw, natural selection, quietly editing behavior over thousands of years, keeping the humans who trusted moving water near healthy animal herds, and quietly removing the ones who didn't from the gene pool, one bad decision at a time. The caution you feel today when water looks murky isn't a lesson you were taught. It might be a verdict, already delivered thousands of generations ago, about the ancestors who felt too little caution and paid for it. And this is where the story should genuinely shift under you, because so far, this sounds like it's only about avoiding sickness, a purely defensive story. It isn't. There's a bonus layer here that flips the entire picture, because clean water access wasn't just about survival, it was about power. Groups that consistently identified reliable, safer water sources didn't just live longer. They controlled territory other groups needed, they could support larger populations in one place, and they could plan longer journeys because they knew where safe water would be waiting along the route. Water knowledge functioned less like a survival tip and more like currency, quietly determining which groups expanded, which stayed small, and which vanished from the archaeological record entirely. The invisible skill of reading a river correctly may have shaped early human migration patterns as much as any tool or weapon did. Which brings back the harder question sitting underneath all of this, the one boiling and filters answer for you today without a second thought. If none of these defenses were perfect on their own, disgust misses tasteless danger, moving water still floods and dries up, animal signs can mislead, then how did any of this add up to a system reliable enough to colonize the entire planet before agriculture, before pottery, before anyone understood what germs even were? The answer is the part almost nobody expects, and it's the strongest twist in this entire story. The real defense was never any single method. It was redundancy. Early humans weren't relying on one accurate signal. They were cross-referencing several unreliable ones at once. Smell, movement, animal presence, group memory, local knowledge passed from elder to child, and demanding rough agreement across all of them before committing to a source. A river that smelled fine but had no animals nearby got treated with suspicion. A pond with animals but a foul smell got avoided anyway. No single sense had to be perfect, because the system was never built around trusting one input. It was built around distrust of any single input alone, which, strangely enough, made it more reliable than trusting any modern single sensor would be on its own. And that's the quiet, uncomfortable inheritance sitting in you right now. You live in a world engineered to remove every one of those 5 layers. Filtered pipes, chemical treatment, sealed bottles, and your body never got the memo. It still runs the old redundancy check anyway. It's why a slightly off smell in your own tap water triggers real unease, even when a lab report says it's perfectly safe. It's why bottled water feels safer than tap for millions of people with no measurable difference in quality. That's not irrational anxiety. That's a 100,000-year-old survival algorithm, still quietly cross-checking a world it no longer needs to distrust, still doing its ancient job, one flinch at a time, long after the danger it was built for disappeared.